Hare Krishna and hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about two different stories from two different traditions. They are both concerning the goddess or the feminine or the Devi, the divine goddess, divine feminine principle. And the stories are about what happens when you poo-poo the goddess, when you kind of sweep her to the side or kind of ignore her, or even worse, if you denigrate or insult her, or what happens in the absence of femininity, in the absence of the Devi, of the goddess. Things get pretty bad. There's a lot of consequences to that. So we're going to be talking about two stories from two separate cultures, but they both understood this point very well. So these are the stories of Annapurna Devi from the Hindu tradition, Indian tradition, Vedic tradition, and we have Oshun from the Ifa, Yoruba, the African or Santeria, those African-based traditions, okay? And both of these Devis, both of these goddesses, feminine principles, you're going to see their importance in these stories and why we need to revere and give equal importance to the divine feminine as we do to the divine masculine. All right, so quick little disclaimer. This is my version of the stories that I have read, that I've been told that I am familiar with. So in the African and the Indian traditions, it's very common that you will find a million different little variations on the different stories. And village to village, city to city, state to state, people will have their little variations in the stories. So this isn't. The thing is, in these traditions, historicity and factuality is not what we're looking for here. It's the parable and the truth, or the truth in the parable. That's what we're looking for. That's the important thing. It's not the historicity of it. So sometimes the variations on the stories will put a little bit more emphasis or importance on different dimensions or values or virtues, or lead into other parts of other stories, right? So these are the stories that I know. If you know a different version of the story, that's great. Don't come after me though if my story is a little bit different than yours, okay? This is all I know. So let's start with the story of Annapurna. So, okay, we have in the Hindu tradition, we have Shiva and we have Shakti. We have Shiva, who is the divine masculine. He is Mahadev. He is the great God. And he is the consciousness, the divine light and consciousness, which makes this whole divine cosmic manifestation possible. And we also have the Devi, Parvati, the Shakti, and she is the Prakriti and the matter and the physical stuff. And she is also what makes part of this universe, or what makes the universe and makes it possible for us to experience this thing we call life and existence and being. So in this whole cosmic manifestation and unmanifestation, you have Shiva and Shakti, and they're always dancing together and working in different ways. Dancing in different ways throughout creation, creating different worlds and sustaining different worlds and destroying and then transmuting and creating new ones. So the whole story of existence and being is just a dance of Shiva and Shakti, of yin and yang, of the male and the female, of the one and the zero, right? Okay, so it so happened that it got to the point where Shiva, he is Mahadev after all, he is the great God. He was thinking to himself, I'm pretty great. I am like this supreme cosmic consciousness, which makes all of this, cosmos be able to be manifested. And what would any of this be without me? I'm pretty great, And Parvati was like, oh yes, you are pretty great. And she put up with that for a little while. And it got to the point where Shiva was thinking, all of this is only due to me, and all of this creation can only exist and be because of me and this consciousness that I have and that I am and how I permeate the whole of this existence. And some of his followers and his devotees also started thinking, oh, Shiva, yes, he is Mahadev, he is the greatest and he is the only one. And Parvati, the Shakti, the mother, she was kind of being swept under the rug or ignored or almost even poo-pooed in certain situations, like, we don't need the Devi, we don't need the feminine, we don't need the divine mother. So Parvati got to the point, she let this go on for a little bit. But it had gone on long enough, and she was like, okay, it's time that I teach them a little lesson here. It's kind of like, the mom, the good housewife and good mother. She works, she tirelessly, she's cooking, she's cleaning, she's bringing life to the family. She's making life so juicy and enjoyable and livable for everybody, for her husband, for in-laws, for the kids. And a lot of times what happens, mother gets forgotten about. She gets forgotten about, ignored, or people don't, family members, sometimes they won't appreciate her so much. So mom sometimes has to say, you know what, enough of kids and husband and in-laws, it's time for a vacation. And once they experience my absence, they'll recognize my worth and how important my presence is, and how important what I have to offer is. And it's not that it's only desirable, but it's beyond something desirable. It is something that is quintessential and absolutely necessary. So that's what Parvati did. She's like, all right, I'm going to take a little vacation here. I'm going to withdraw myself and withdraw the Shakti and the divine feminine energy from the entirety of this cosmic manifestation. And that's what she did. And there were some consequences to that, won't you believe it? All the rivers and the streams and the creeks dried up, and none of the animals, and what to say of the animals, none of the people could reproduce or have sex or get pregnant or have babies. None of the seeds in the fields were sprouting. None of the trees were giving fruit. None of the vines were giving off flowers or any fruits or vegetables. Everything was just drying up, and the color, the flavor, the flair, the spice of life was just gone. Life was a dying, decaying, gray, dry, stale, unappealing existence. It was not good, very ugly. And things started getting bad because not only did Parvati, pull herself out from just the earth plane, but the whole of the cosmic manifestation. So you got the gods are freaking out, the demons are freaking out, all of the earth planes and all the humans, everybody's suffering, everybody's freaking out. And no one has nourishment anymore. No one has strength anymore. No one has fertility or creativity or the ability to do the things that they did before, to create and bring forth life and beauty and juiciness and all of that Shakti. So the humans, they start recognizing, the devotees, they start recognizing on the earth in Varanasi, oh, you know what? We need to pray to the Devi. We need to pray to the goddess. We need to pray to that primordial Shakti who gives nourishment and vitality and strength and life force and fertility and all of that to us and to the soil and to the animals. She is that element throughout all. She permeates all of those different forms of life. So we need to propitiate her. And when they recognize their mistakes, Parvati, she's like a mother, very caring mother. So once the bad kids have recognized their mistake and they apologize and they're ready to atone and do something about it, she's like, okay, we can move on now. I'll come back. We can work this out. But, no mother wants to see her kids suffer unnecessarily. But she recognized that they were truly sorry and that they were ready to make a change. So what did she do? She came down in the form of Annapurna to Varanasi, and she came with her little gold bowl and her little gold bejeweled spoon, and she opened up a temple and a kitchen in the ancient city of Varanasi, and she fed all the people and all the animals. She fed everybody and gave nourishment and satiation to all of the living entities to the fullest extent that they were capable of receiving. She filled them up. And it got to the point where Shiva, meanwhile, he was witnessing all of this happening, and he was seeing all of this chaos and suffering and lack of vitality and grayness and drabbiness and the lack of life. He was witness to all of this and realized, okay, yes, my Devi, my Shakti, my woman, she's important for the entirety of the cosmic manifestation, as important as me too. Nothing can get done without her. She's so important. And he realized, I've made a mistake. I must go apologize and make amends. So Shiva takes on the form of a sadhu, of an old holy ascetic man, all covered in ashes and just a loincloth. He goes as a beggar with just a little bowl, and he goes to Annapurna's temple, and he goes up to her to get food. And of course, as soon as Annapurna sees him, she recognizes her Shiva. She recognizes her love, her man, her Mahadev. She could not be fooled, and she recognized, here has come my man, and he realizes now that I am important and that I am necessary, and he has come to me for nourishment. So Shiva apologized, and she fed him, and they made amends, and, everybody lived happily ever after. So that's the story of Annapurna, okay? So that's from the Hindu epics and the Hindu stories of what happens. Just one of the examples of when the Devi isn't properly propitiated, when she isn't properly appreciated and given her due. She'll leave, and when she leaves, she's fine. She doesn't need us. She's going to be just fine. But we cannot do without the Devi. We cannot do without the divine feminine. And when we do, and we go without, we all suffer, and it's terrible. Is it not so? So we'll look in the next story of Oshun. Now, this story of Oshun comes from the African traditions, from Ifa, from the Yoruban or Santeria traditions. And you'll hear different variations on this tale as well, but it's covering the same important points. So you have the main supreme godhead, the Olodumare, and he is the very similar to the Brahman, or the supreme godhead behind all, the force behind all forces and the power behind all powers. And Olodumare, he created these orishas who are much like the devas, who are like godly beings. And each of these orishas, they have been tasked with different dimensions and domains of the existence. So you have Yemaya, who is the orisha. She is the orisha of the oceans and the seas, and that is her domain. And you have Oshun, who we're talking about, and her domain is the sweet waters, or the fresh water, and the streams and the rivers and the creeks, the moisture in the soil. She is fertility and sex and enjoyment and pleasure and beauty and aesthetics. She is very much the Venusian archetype, or the Venusian goddess principle, and very similar to Annapurna. Without Oshun, there is no juiciness in life. There is no flavor to life. And life just dries up without Oshun. Everything dries up. Intellect, on the physical level, mental level, spiritual level, everything just withers up without the Shakti, without the divine feminine. So, some time had passed. The Orishas are doing their thing, and they're all working within their domains and working with humanity, focusing on different aspects. But a lot of the male orishas, a lot of the guys, they were getting pretty puffed up, and a lot of them were thinking, I am pretty great. Look, these humans wouldn't have these tools without me, and these humans wouldn't have this medicine without me. They wouldn't know how to do any of these things if it weren't for us orishas that were giving them these things and teaching them how to do all of these things, and for our guidance. And they were getting pretty puffed up. Now, Oshun, just like Annapurna, she could put up with this for a while. She's a tolerant woman. She's a good tolerant woman. But she will only take your crap for so long, because she is a woman that knows her worth. So, it so happened that just like with Annapurna, some time went by, and Oshun got tired of a lot of the male orishas kind of poo-pooing her and feeling like she isn't important or necessary or a quintessential ingredient for the smooth functioning of cosmic existence. So she was like, you know what? These people don't know how important I am. And what did Oshun do? She left. She withdrew herself from the earth, and she went up and sat on the moon and just did her makeup and was like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and, pamper myself and let these people recognize their mistake. Let them go ahead and recognize. So What happened on the earth plane and what happened with all the living entities? Same thing with Miss Annapurna. All of the waters dried up. None of the animals or the people could reproduce. None of the plants were giving any food. Everybody's starving. Nobody can get any source of nourishment from anything. And life is just withering up and terrible. And even the Orishas now, they cannot carry out their duties. They cannot carry out their tasks working with humanity. So now you have this, all the Orishas talking to each other. I'm having these issues and I can't do my duties. And you're having these problems over here too. You can't carry out your duties. Everybody's having problems. Everybody's facing obstacles and nothing is running smoothly. So the Orishas, they get together and they're like, all right, we're going to get together. We go to Olodumare. So they do. And they go and they're like, okay, so what's going on here? We're all trying to do our jobs here. And we were doing a really great job, if you didn't notice. Everything was going pretty great. But now none of us can do anything. What's going on? And Olodumare, he takes a little pause and he looks around and he said, you want to take a look around and see if everybody's here. Maybe somebody's missing from, this great meeting of all the Orishas. And the Orishas, they look around and they're like, no, we're all here. Everybody's here. All the big names and the big wigs, we're all here. And Olodumare is like, are you so sure about that? I don't know about that. And then they recognize, you know what? Everybody's here but Oshun. But she's not important. Certainly, she doesn't need to be here. She's just some nobody. Let her do her thing, dance in the river, do her makeup and do her hair and sing her songs and make love and do her silly little vain things. And Olodumare was like, well, there's your problem, because little Miss Oshun isn't just little Miss Oshun doing her little vain thing over there. She is the quintessential ingredient for the smooth functioning of the cosmic manifestation. No creation and sustenance gets done without her. No life can flourish without her. None of you, as you can see, nothing can get done without Oshun. Everything is contingent upon having her and having her blessing. Without that, we're all suffering, as you can see. And they're like, well, what do we need to do? We're sorry. We won't do it again. And he says, Olodumare tells him, well, don't tell me you're sorry. That typical whole like, well, why are you apologizing to me when I'm not the one you offended? You need to go to the one you offended and apologize. So they talk amongst themselves. They realize that they had messed up. All the Orishas, they get together. They go to Oshun. And Oshun's sitting there. She knows what's going on. She knows what's up. And she's doing her little makeup still, doing her hair and everything, just pampering herself. And she's like, oh, hello, Orishas. How are you doing? How are things going on Earth? She knows what's about to happen. And the Orishas, they apologize for poo-pooing her and for not recognizing her importance and her grace and what the divine feminine brings. And they saw that the divine feminine in the Venusian archetypal principle is more than just superficial beauty. It's more than superficial aesthetics, which is nice. Who doesn't love beauty and pleasure and those sort of things? But it goes deeper, so deep that it is one of the foundations necessary for nourishing life, because it is nourishment, satiety, fullness itself. So they apologized and they said, please come back, because nothing can function. The humans can't do anything. None of us Orishas can do anything. We're sorry and we need you back. We need you. And she said, all right, I'll come back. But there was that but. She said, don't let it happen again. Make sure it doesn't happen again, because next time maybe I won't be so graceful. Maybe next time I might just leave and I won't come back. So remember this, what happens in my absence. Remember what happens in the absence of the Devi, of the goddess, of the mother. When she leaves, nothing works. So remember to give her appreciation and gratitude and love, and give her the honor that she is deserving of. And yeah, totally, it is due to her. So especially today, so much of in the last 2,000 years, the patriarchal Abrahamic mindset has been more dominating, and a lot of the feminine principles have been squashed out or ignored, and we've seen a lot of the implications of that. We've lost a lot of the beauty, the gentleness, the juice of life, and we see through both of these stories, through the stories of Oshun, through the stories of Annapurna, the absolute necessity for the goddess, that we have to have her in our lives. So with these stories, maybe this will inspire you to form a better connection with the Devi, with the goddess, with the feminine principles, or even with the divine energies in your life, whether it's through the mothers or grandmothers or nieces or daughters or granddaughters, or heck, even in men. The divine feminine comes through the men too. You know, some of the best, most powerful priests of Oshun happen to be gay men and trans women. I tell you what. So the divine feminine isn't only limited to the female bodies, although it is most commonly found through that expression. But remember through these stories that we always have to go hand in hand. Yin has its yang, Shiva has its Shakti, the masculine has the feminine. So we have to work left and right, right? The bird can't fly without a left wing and a right wing. It takes two for the bird to fly. So remember this, respect the goddess, honor the goddess, and until next time. Okay, see you later. All glories to the goddess. Jai Devi.